Hello everyone, today I am here with part 15 of history chapter number 3, Nationalism in India. Dear student, in previous lecture we discussed that after Dandi March, British government started to take strict action over the satyagrahis of our country. In such situation, Mahatma Gandhi decided to call off civil disobedience movement. He entered into pact with Lord Viceroy Irvin. This pact was known as Gandhi-Irvin Pact. Gandhi-Irvin Pact, it was a political agreement between Mr. Gandhi and Lord Viceroy Irvin. According to this pact, Gandhiji agreed to participate in second round table conference in London. On the other hand, British government, Viceroy Irvin agreed to release all the political prisoners of our country. Gandhiji went to London to participate in second round table conference. He returned to India with disappointed heart. After seeing the situation of our country, Mr. Gandhi decided to relaunch civil disobedience movement. Now in today's lecture, we are going to discuss how different social groups participated and reacted towards civil disobedience movement. Today we are going to discuss the first example of one such social group in the form of Patidar of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh. In the countryside, rich peasants communities like the Patidars of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh were active in the movement. Being producers of commercial crop, they were very hard hit by the trade depression and falling prices. When Gandhiji launched civil disobedience movement, Patidar of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh, they actively participated in this movement because they were the producer of commercial crop, but they were very hardly hit by the worldwide economic depression. As we discuss the effect of worldwide economic depression, the prices of agriculture product falling down. So in this period, they were very hardly hit by the falling prices of agriculture product. As their cash income disappeared, they found impossible to pay the government's revenue demand. Their product prices falling down, so their income also falling down. And in such situation, it was impossible for them to pay the demand of revenue by the government. They were not in position to pay the demands, to pay the government demands for revenue. And the refusal of the government to reduce the revenue demand led to widespread resentment. These rich peasants, Patidar of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh, they demanded reduce the revenue, but government was not ready, British government was not ready to reduce the revenue. So they become very disappointed. These rich peasants become enthusiastic supporters of the civil disobedience movement, organizing their communities and at times forcing reluctant members to participate in the boycott programs. When Gandhiji launched civil disobedience movement, they actively participated in the movement and they supported this movement very enthusiastically. Even they forced their unwilling member, reluctant means unwilling member, they also forced them to participate in the movement, and even they forced them in the boycott program. As we discussed that in boycott program, Indian people, they boycotted foreign goods, foreign clothes, they picketed liquor shop. So they forced their member to participate in boycott program also. For them, fight for Swaraj was struggle against high revenues. Now this is very interesting point here, student. Actually, for them, meaning of Swaraj means freedom. Meaning of Swaraj for them, it is not the freedom of our country, but for them, meaning of Swaraj is fight against high revenue. For them, the fight for Swaraj was struggle against high revenues, but they were deeply disappointed when the movement was called off in 1931 without the revenue rates being revised. So when the movement was restarted in 1932, many of them refused to participate. As I told you, for them, meaning of Swaraj is not the freedom, but it is fight against high revenue. They were deeply disappointed when Gandhiji called off civil disobedience movement in 1931 after Salt March without revenue being revised, because government not reduced the revenue. When Gandhiji called off the movement in 1931, revenue was not revised, not reduced by the government. So these rich peasants, they become very disappointed. So when the movement was restarted in 1932, many of them refused to participate. When again in 1932, when Gandhiji returned from the London and he relaunched the civil disobedience movement, many of these patidars of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh, means these rich peasants community, they refused to participate in this civil disobedience movement again. So this was the first example of social group, how different social group reacted towards civil disobedience movement. Now the second example of such social group in the form of poor peasants, poor farmer. The poor peasantry were not just interested in the lowering of the revenue demand. Many of them were small tenants cultivating land they had rented from landlord. Second social group in the form of poor peasants. They were not only interested in the lowering of the revenue, they are not interested only in the reduction of revenue, because many of them, they were the small tenant cultivating land they had rented from landlord. They were the small farmer and they were cultivating the land on a rent from the landlord. as the depression continued and cash income dwindled, the small tenant found it difficult to pay the rent. Because of the economic depression, agriculture prices falling down, and the cash income of the small poor farmer also dwindled. Dwindle means become small. Their cash income dwindled, so they also found very difficult to pay the rent to the landlord, and on the other hand they had to pay the revenue to British government also. They wanted the unpaid rent to the landlord to be remitted. Here remitted means forgive. So in the first line, as I told you, that poor peasantry were not just interested in the lowering of the revenue, but they also interested their unpaid rent to the landlord to be remitted, means forgive by the landlord. So they had two interests. While they participating in civil disobedience movement, they had two interests. One interest is that reduction in revenue, and second one is that their unpaid rent to the landlord to be forgiven by the landlord. They joined a variety of radical movements often led by socialists and communists. When civil disobedience movement spread into the countryside, they also joined the movement along with the communists and along with the socialists. Apprehensive of raising issues that might upset the rich peasants and landlords, Congress was unwilling to support no rent campaign in most places. In the first example, we discussed that rich peasants in the form of Patidar of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh, they were the active participant of civil disobedience movement. So when these poor peasants, they also participated in civil disobedience movement, but they did not get the support of Congress. Why? Because rich peasants, they were the active participant of civil disobedience movement. So Congress did not want to lose their support. So because of the fear might they lose the support of rich peasants, Congress were not ready to support the no rent movement which was started by the poor peasants. Clear, student? Again I am repeating. Congress did not support the no rent movement which was started by the poor peasants because they had feared that, Congress had feared that if they support the no rent movement of these poor peasants, poor farmer, they might lose the support of the rich farmer in the form of Patidars of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh. So Congress was not ready to support the no rent movement which was started by the poor farmer. So the relationship between the poor peasants and Congress remained uncertain. When Congress was not ready to support the no rent movement by the poor farmer, the relationship between the Congress and poor peasants remain uncertain. Dear student, here I would like to conclude my today's lecture. In the next lecture, we will see other social group, how they reacted, how they participated in civil disobedience movement. Thank you very much for your support. We will meet again with the new part of the chapter very soon.